好的，现在的话呢，我们就进入到我们的讲座的正式环节。Jason Paul McCarthy，他目前呢是微 design 的学术总监。此前的话呢，他在 Parsons Fashion Design， 可能如果对这个设计和这一个艺术比较了解的学生和家长哈，可能知道 Parsons 是全美排名第1的艺术设计院校。他在 Parsons 里面的话是负责这个 Fashion Design 的前系主任。Parsons 的 Fashion Design 的话呢，也是全美排名第1的这样的一个存在。此外的话呢，Jason Paul 他也是刚被这个深圳大学聘为这个客座教授，所以的话呢，他有非常丰富的中美的这样的一个教育的这个经历哈。好的，现在的话呢，我就不再多赘述他的这个背景，我会把时间的话呢交给 Jason Paul， 他会更详细的为大家介绍他的这个经历和教学的这一个approach。好的 ，Jason Paul。
Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm very excited to talk to you today about portfolio application, whether it's something you're interested in, something you're looking to explore, and really give you some ideas of the admissions process, what schools are looking for. And again, please feel free to have any questions you have, and I'll be happy to answer them at the bottom and at the end of the session today. So I'm going to talk a bit about what is art portfolio, what to really consider when you're preparing for art school and thinking about your subjects or majors, but also non-art schools as well. What schools require out of portfolios, art schools or Ivy League schools, and really some of the best tips I could give you when you're starting to really think about that. When should you start? How should you start to plan? And what you start to really think about. So hopefully today I'm going to give you some really good insights into that based on my experience, and you'll get a sense of that. But like Alison said, let me give you a bit of background to who I am and what I've done in the past. I've been very fortunate to work with so many different organizations, educational schools and companies. I was a director of Parsons, I was a professor at SCAD, I'm going to be also teaching as a professor at RISD this summer. But I've also worked in the industry, collaborating with different fashion brands, design brands, and also here now I'm actually currently traveling. I'm in China. I'm doing a lot of work with different brands and schools here. So I have a good experience of how education industry collaborate, but really also how students apply to these top design schools and how they get into these Ivy League or design schools. I studied myself at the Royal College of Art in London, where I did my master's degree. So again, I have a personal experience of what it's like to apply for these top schools. I've created a number of different brands in my time in my career. One of them was Benno, which was a sustainable, environmental, ethical fashion brand based in India and New York. I've also traveled the world giving workshops at schools, where it's about collage, where it's about fashion and art foundation, and trying to share my knowledge that I've learned during my career in education. I've judged shows, I've judged competitions, but some of the things that I really loved during my time was when I worked at SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design. Of course, when I worked at Parsons as well, not only Parsons in New York, but also Parsons in Paris, where I taught the students from the first year to the final year, working on competitions and different art and design projects. And then We Design, which I created back in 2017-18. And this was really to help students when they're applying to these top schools, Ivy League or design schools, to help them with their portfolios, help with their personal statements, help them really navigate what the best school was, what the best application for them was to actually develop their work. And again, I've done a lot of interviews, I've done a lot of presentations, I've done a lot of lectures and webinars, and I'm excited today to continue that and explore with you, hopefully some information that can help you on your next journey. So as I say, I'm going to go through a number of different elements, and please feel free to take some notes. Maybe if you have any questions, you can pop them in the chat for now or for later, and we'll do a little Q&A at the end. So what really is an art portfolio or portfolio? This is whether you're applying for an art and design school or a non-art school, an Ivy League school, an art supplement. What really is an art portfolio? And it sounds like an easy question, but it's actually quite a complex question. So an art portfolio is really a thoughtfully designed visual selection and presentation of your artwork. So thoughtfully, so you mean you have to think about it. You can't just throw everything into your portfolio. You need to think about what it's saying about you, your work, and the best work. It needs to embody your ideas, your research, your innovation, your skills, and your process. It also needs to show your interests. So again, it's not just about just doing one piece of work. It's like, oh, that's a nice piece of drawing, or that's a nice sculpture. It needs to show ideas, information about your skills, what you're interested in. So it needs to be focused. And finding art portfolio is a collection of your best work, like I said. You really need to highlight what you've done and what you experienced and your abilities. So again, especially when you're applying for these non-art schools, they're really looking for your best work. So what's the role of the art portfolio in applying to art school? So I'm going to first of all start with more the general art school, and then we'll go into more supplemental portfolios. So when we talk about general art schools and applying for general art schools, there are a number of different elements. You know, of course, there's your application form, there's your transcripts, tests. You know, there's probably a letter of recommendation, but the portfolio is really one of the most important parts. It's sort of sandwiched in the middle. It's like the meat or the burger in your bun. So again, your portfolio and your essay and your personal statement are really the most important things. So what to consider when you're preparing for your art portfolio? Well, I believe that it's not just about doing work. It's not just about showing your artwork. You need to plan, you need to research, you need to structure, execute, and review what you're doing as a portfolio. So again, you really have to take some time and think about your structure and your strategy to when you're building your portfolio and you're applying for design school. And that's what I do with my students. We actually plan the whole portfolio. We think of all of these elements. So the first one, plan. Give yourself some time. Time is always your best friend when you're applying to any design school, non-design school, building your portfolio, creating artwork. You can always do your portfolio in the time that you have, but ideally you want to have 1 to 2 years to prep everything together to be focused on your portfolio. I've had students definitely do it in 6 months. I've had students doing it in 1 year. So again, there's always options. But again, time is your best friend for when you're planning. So you're always trying to plan ahead. Little tip, which I always tell students, is don't try to upload your work 2 hours before the deadline. Don't try to do it a day before the deadline, because things happen. Things crash, things take too long. You want to recheck things. So again, time is always really important. So you need to plan ahead. Research. So make sure you're researching, like, what subjects you love, what schools you love, what drives you, what are your strengths. There's so many different areas that you could study, so make sure you're looking into that and reflecting on that. So do your research. What is photography, or what is game design? Why would I study that? Do I really think it's interesting to me? Same with the schools. Don't just pick a school because you heard it was the best one. Make sure it's the right one for you. Some schools are in a certain location might be better for you than others. Maybe some schools have better scholarship opportunities than others. Maybe some have better internet or industry connections than others. So again, make sure you're also researching your school, because just because they're the top schools on the list doesn't mean they're maybe the best ones for you. I would say there's so many top design schools now. So again, I think make sure you broaden your range of how many schools you apply for and what you're looking to when you apply for your design schools. And again, certain design schools might be more focused on a certain subject. So again, if you're doing fashion, maybe it's CSM, Parsons, FIT, UAL. Maybe it's animation, it's CalArts, Ringley, SCAD. So again, based on the subject, could decide which school that you want to apply for. So let's look a little bit at the actual requirements. So we talked about planning and researching, but then there's the research and the structure. So the reason I put them two together, because the type of school and subject really impact the type of work and portfolio you put together. Each school can sometimes have different requirements. And each school might also have certain things they look for with a certain type of student or a certain type of piece of artwork. So it's really important that you don't think, all right, one portfolio fits everything, because it doesn't. And it's really important that you tailor your portfolio to different design schools. And again, this is sort of more in general. So this is a more general portfolio information, and we'll go into a few schools more specifically. Generally 10, 12 to 20 pieces of examples or pages of artwork is what's normally required. So it's quite a good number. Really should think about putting a variety of mediums in your portfolio, not just like one medium. You want to show your skills across a variety of areas in experimentation. I would definitely include sort of project-based, assignment-based work, as well as self-directed work, and also sketchbook work. Sometimes the actual portfolio doesn't need to be so major specific. Again, depends on the school and the subject. You can have it all more broader to show your range of skills. Definitely don't include any copies. Don't include a copy of a photograph. Don't include a copy of a famous artwork. Try to do more original and creative work. Also, try and think about if you're going to do animation or character design. Try to reduce and limit your anime and your cartooning, because they see that as a different level. So again, a few things to think about. Again, your portfolio should be the most recent work. So again, if you've done something when you were 6, it's probably not going to be your best work. It's probably better to use something in the last 2 years of your art development. And again, don't forget to be selective. Make sure you think about the best work and what really represents who you are and your ideas and your process. But again, when you look for these design schools, you'll realize that they are a little bit different, and sometimes there's an extra or specific requirement. And again, these are just some examples that I'm going to show you right now. But again, make sure you do your own research, and that's why I always make sure I do with my students to do that. So for example, again, this changes yearly too. So you'll notice in one of these slides, I'm even going to mention that. So Pratt actually looks at observational drawing as an important part of your application. 3 to 5 drawings for observation. Doesn't matter what type of major you're in. It could be fashion, it could be fine arts, it could be graphic design. They ask for this type of inclusion in your portfolio of pieces. But the interesting thing is, if you're in photography, they don't require this. So they require something else. They want you to include at least 5 photographs in your portfolio. And so again, when you're looking at your school and your subject, make sure you do look at it very specifically, because you want to make sure you're doing the requirements that they're looking for. Also with Pratt, it's uploaded to SlideRoom. Some schools use a different application to upload it. And I found with students that could be actually the thing that takes the longest. You get all your portfolio together, and then you realize, oh, it needs to be this format. Oh, it needs to be uploaded in this platform. So again, make sure you understand all that before you go into it. So SVA, you need to include a minimum of 3 to 5 examples of drawing done for observation. So observation again, and these can include self-portrait, figure drawing. But again, from before, when we looked at the other different schools, they may have a different number of pages. So how many is 3 to 5 within the amount of pages for SVA versus Pratt? How much do you want to put together for that? And they say 3 to 5. So again, you've got a good range there of what you can actually choose. Parsons don't ask for any observational drawing. They don't require anything. But what they do require is a Parsons challenge. So a separate project that goes into your portfolio with a piece of writing. So again, that's 2 extra pages they ask for. Well, I think it's 2 to 3 additional pages that you can add into your portfolio. So again, 3 to 5 was Pratt. Photography was different. 3 to 5 was also SVA, but Parsons was different. So let's look at RISD. So RISD before had a challenge, a RISD challenge. And this is why it's really important that you look at the schools. So RISD now don't have this challenge anymore. And last year, when I was speaking to lots of students that came to me, maybe late in the application phase, they'd already worked on this challenge. They thought it was already what they were supposed to do, but actually the school had taken that away. So again, the reason I put this on there is to show you that actually in the end, sometimes these challenges are not there anymore. So every year you should look at your requirements. Okay, so then one of the most final important things is execution. So how do you execute your portfolio? So you want to organize your artwork in a certain way. So quality, select your quality over quantity. In general, portfolio is going to be judged by its weakest work as well as its best work. So again, make sure it's all on the same level. And again, sometimes a few projects in more detail can be better than a large project that's just 1 or 2 in your portfolio. So think about some of the smaller projects can be better. Start strong, finish strong. That's regards to like the order of your work. Avoid the mistake of putting the less developed work at the end, because that's really at the end is where they're really going to maybe review your final, like, is this student good enough? So again, make sure you're starting strong, finishing strong. Get other people to look at your portfolio, mentors, experts, teachers, even ask friends, give you feedback. Of course, what you want to do is you definitely want to seek the guidance from peers that know the process, peers that know the application process, that have maybe been at these schools, know the type of quality and work. Could be faculty. Again, make sure you get your portfolio reviewed, because there'll be things you don't see that they can give you really good advice on. So sort of summing up on, design school. So what else do art schools look for in selecting students? Well, a number of things. I mean, of course, your portfolio and your artwork is important, but you need to have an entrepreneur mindset. So being ambitious, and that comes through in your general work, and sometimes you have an interview. They're looking for a global citizen, a caring and compassionate design thinker, a unique perspective and design identity, a character and authenticity, and an ambassador. And how does this come across? It comes across in your subjects of your work, your personal statement, your essay. So, the types of subjects you use for your work, it could be something in society, it could be environmental, it could be a upcycling, sustainable project. This all shows this type of caring, global citizen and perspective. Let's say your portfolio is always focused on the body. That gives a specific identity. Let's say it could all be focused on a certain material. Again, gives it a certain identity. Okay, so it shows through in your work all these other things that schools are looking for. They want to know how you think. They want to know how you feel. They want to know how you get inspired. They want your views and observations. So again, give them your observations. Don't just give them what they think they should see or you think just looks good. Make sure in your personal statements you talk about what inspires you and why you're doing art and design and why you love this school and why you love this subject. Make sure you're showing how you can connect your research to your design and your outcomes, and also show your design process. So they like to see rough work, they like to see design process, they like to see how you're connecting all your observations. So what to include in your art portfolio? And towards the end of today, I will show you some extra examples, but these are just some things that you want to consider including into your art portfolio. Of course, your ideas, your research, and your innovations. A range of skills. It could be digital, it could be physical, it could be drawing, it could be painting, sewing, woodwork, construction, photography. Process, so experimentation and thinking skills, so rough design from research to outcome. And again, that can be general. Sometimes even if with fine arts, you can show your initial thumbnails or your initial sketches, your interest and your focus. What is it that you're really interested in capturing or interested in designing, developing, improving within that design and art and design? Your style, maybe you have a certain style, like I love collage, I love monochromatic, artwork. So again, what type of style are you interested in? Like we've said before, your best work and your selected work, and then don't forget, curate your portfolio so you feel that it's like an exhibition. It's like a gallery of your work, and it really comes across, and people can see that throughout your portfolio. And one thing to say, when I say the best, your artwork, of course, that relates a lot to the outcome, but also your process, your best process, your best research development, your best experiments. So again, it's not just the best like final piece, it's actually throughout that process. Okay, so considering applying to art and design majors at top universities, or they're not, art and design, the Ivy League. So a lot of students now need to have a portfolio when they're also applying to these top universities. And again, this is called a supplemental application. So we have our art school, and then we have a sort of non-art school, and they still require the same level of portfolio. So these are some of the top, top universities: Harvard, Stanford, of course, Yale, Brown, etc. And when we think about sort of the best and the top colleges and design schools in America, they're not always your art design schools, because there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of technology. And again, if you look here, Washington University, South Carolina, Carnegie Mellon are some of the best top colleges for design in America. So again, when we talk about all these schools and you're applying, it's really important you do your research, but it's also really important that you broaden your range of schools, because there's so many great schools out there for design, even if they're not seen as a traditional art and design school. Again, Harvard University, like we said, Stanford, and Yale. So I'll go through a few of the different sort of, non-traditional, let's say, art and design schools, the sort of Ivy League schools, to give you a little bit of an understanding of some of the programs and what they're really focused on. And again, this is a general overview, and this is something that we would do as with students all the time. We'll go for each of the schools to explain the design process. So Carnegie Mellon, great school. And actually really does focus on design. And when we talk about design is like innovation. And design is not necessarily drawing a picture or painting or portrait or fashion design. Design is innovation at any school. But they really focus on products, communication, the environment, and interdisciplinary design. So really sort of cross-collaborating different design majors into one. And again, they have a lot of undergraduate and graduate students from a variety of different backgrounds. And again, I think Carnegie Mellon is one of the most interesting sort of non-art and design schools that is a school of design that I would recommend for anyone who's sort of has the sort of interest in the sort of academic part, but also the design aspect. And you can see here a few of the different programs, especially interdisciplinary design, which I think is really quite creative on the undergraduate level, in the Bachelor of Humanities, the Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Computer Science. Again, really weaving all this together collectively. And also, Carnegie Mellon has a very diverse, range of students actually. And I think that's what makes it really interesting. So there's this program called Integrated Design, Arts and Technology, IDEATE. And this connects students and faculty from across the university through coursework, collaboration, and studio experiences. Cornell really focused a lot on architecture, art, urban planning, urban research, regional studies. So again, if you're maybe more focused in that area, and you want to go to sort of more of a Ivy League university / design, then I would definitely say Cornell is a good option for you. They're very much all about connecting industry, practice, and studio work. And again, this is some of their art and design majors for Stanford. And again, the really important thing is you do your research, because a lot of students come to me and they don't realize that some of these top universities have design programs. And it could be something you do as your majors, it can be something you do as a second major, it could be something that also you do as an elective space, if that's still a passion of yours that you still want to keep on developing. Again, Harvard has also a range of art subjects and design subjects, especially in film and visual studies. They also have a program in art and architectural history, and theater and dance. So how to take advantage of sort of art supplements for college application? Because that's the key thing, because even though, these might not be art design schools, they are design universities, and they're looking for you to, submit an art supplement in your college application. So what sort of things do they look for? Well, first of all, your art is there to amplify your college application. So without it, your application could be great. With it, you want to make sure it amplifies your college application. So again, they're interested in your academic pursuits because it says more about who you are. And if art and design has been a major part of your academic, extracurricular, then I think it's important that you have that in your portfolio and your application, because that talent can really make your application much stronger. But again, it needs to showcase your accomplishments. It's not always required. So again, you need to make sure that, when you do apply with your art supplements, that it's the best, and it really showcases your real strengths as an art talent, design talent, and it can definitely make you stand out. So why would these Ivy League level universities or schools like to see applicants' art portfolios? Well, first of all, they want class to be made up of a wider variety of students, a variety of interests and talents. They don't just want one same student in every class or one same application. So again, if you're a physics major that loves jazz, if you're an engineer that loves to 3D print. So again, there's lots of different ways. They love these combinations of students with these design applications. And also the art supplement really helps sort of the admission officers understand how talented you are alongside reading what's on a piece of paper. So again, of course, your essays, your statements tell on a piece of paper, maybe from a grade point of view, how strong and talented you are in one way, but your art portfolio, your art supplement can really show them in a very different way. Of course, this is also where awards that you get, accomplishments that you get, can also work with your art portfolio. And again, this can't compare to other students then who don't have that. So again, think about the criteria and think about what you're offering to the admissions officers in your application. And in this case, an art supplement can be used to further understand your artistic capabilities too. So the potential of what you could do in that program, the potential of what you could do when you go to that school based on, oh, this student's really interested in this, they've done amazing work in this area, they've worked with the UN, they've worked with a project like this. Wow, what could they do when they come to the school in this subject? So again, it's about making the difference. But of course, it's important to say that it will boost your application if it's an outstanding art supplement, but it won't ever guarantee your admissions because the rest of your application still needs to be at the top. So you can't expect, oh, my application, my test scores or is okay, but my art supplement's amazing, so that's going to be, going to guarantee me to get in. No, they all both have to be amazing. They all both have to be very strong. And in some ways, the art portfolio, the art supplement is like the icing on the cake. It's like the extra thing to, make you stand out. But again, it's not a get out of free jail card. It's not a, oh, something's missing somewhere else. If I put this in, that covers that missing piece. No, you always have to be strong in all areas. And again, it's really important to say that it's not for everyone. And that's why we go through the process of looking at schools, looking at students' artwork, doing assessments, because, a mediocre or not a great submission ends up reflecting badly on your application. So again, you need to make sure that when you're doing your art portfolio, you're getting the advice, you're getting the guidance, you're getting the mentorship, the developments that can be the best that you can potentially do. Again, otherwise it could potentially have a negative effect as well. That's why it's really, really important. And again, just to make you aware, and this is actually from the OWLS website, is that your materials will be reviewed by art faculty from that university. So again, when you're sending your work in, don't think, oh, an admission person might just be like, oh, it's good. The actual art faculty are going to be actually looking at it. They're going to be really giving their evaluation based on what they think the level of students need to be within their subjects and their majors. So again, just think about that when you're doing your art portfolio, and this art faculty will be the one that actually will be reviewing your work. And again, just to play off on that, is that whether it's a visual art, dance, theatre, you really want to think about the faculty that are going to be actually reviewing your work, and thinking about giving yourself a rating of 1 to 5. What would you rate or score your submission from 1 to 5? That's an example, okay? So would you give yourself a 5 being the best, or would you give yourself a 2 being okay? And that can start helping you really think about, is my portfolio the strongest? And this is how a lot of the admissions office work. So when they send portfolios to the faculty, the faculty will rate the portfolios and give them back to the admissions officers. And again, of course, they're most interested in the highest rating. So let's say 5 is the highest rating. Of course, they'll hope that the faculty come back and say, oh, Jason's portfolio is a 5. We would definitely think it's a really strong application of art supplement, and that will definitely give you that edge in your portfolio. And again, something could be rated as a 4, and it might have some positive impact, but normally that probably generally neutralizes everything. It means like, it's great. Would it make the difference? Yeah, probably would if someone didn't have it, but it sort of is sort of okay. So you definitely want to go for the 5s. The 4s can still be to some level an advantage, but you really want to get the 5s to make this supplement really stand out. Because again, it's not about just adding something extra into your application because more is better. It's about quality and the standard of your work. But what I would say is more and more students are top students. So again, if you really are thinking about the art supplement, it's a strong element to add to make the difference. For example, we had a student just got in Georgia Tech, we had an art supplement. So again, really important that you can add that aspect. So let's look a little bit at some of the requirements, and you'll see they're very different to the art schools, and each school is again very different what they require. So that's why you need to do your research when you're looking at your different design schools. So Princeton, so this optional art supplement is for students who have devoted a significant amount of time and energy to one or more art forms. So again, this is not something you want to take up in 3 months. This is something you hopefully have been doing for a few years. That shows your work and your development, because it's hard to teach someone art and design in 3 months. The principles and then the execution and also the passion and the interest. So hopefully it's something you've been in over a certain amount of time, and that's what they look for. They say if you excel in architecture, creative writing, dance, music, theatre, or visual arts, we would like you to consider your talents as a part of your application. So they really are, engaging and inviting you to put your art in your application. And again, you do this through Slide Room. So for Yale, whether or not you wish to major in art as undergraduate, if you're an advanced art or visual arts student, you may consider submitting an art portfolio as part of your application. So again, they're welcoming you to submit your art application if you think you're at the level of advanced visual artist. But again, please bear in mind that Yale's School of Art faculty will review your portfolio, not admissions officers. So again, you should only consider submitting work that is strong and important for your application. And they said you should limit your submission to between 5 to 8 pieces and include at least 1 drawing. So let's look at some examples. And again, these are just general suggestions, and there are a variety of examples. Some are outcomes, some are pages, some are projects, just to give you a sense of the type of portfolio and layout. One thing I would say is there's never one portfolio, there's never one outcome, and there's never one student. So use these as guidance, use these as references, but not answers. Because again, it's about you and it's about your story and your examples of work. And I'm going to go through a number of different subjects and areas, and I'll explain them as we go along. So one of the first things is important is documentation and sketchbook. I would say this is stronger definitely for art schools than non-art schools. Non-art schools are really looking probably for that final work in the majority than art schools. But it's really important that you're showing your process. And again, it could be digital or physical. So that's something you have to think about. How do you capture your work, digital or physical? Because most applications now are digitally and online. But how do you put your process together? How do you document your work? This is someone in character design, someone in animation, storytelling. How do you take this and put it into your portfolio? How do you take some of your fine art work and put it into a digital portfolio? How do you take some of your sketchbook work and put it into your portfolio? And again, you'll see some of these ways as we get on later to the actual final portfolios. But again, how do you take this project and put it into a portfolio? Design research and process. So again, it's not just about finding an outcome, it's the process. So this is a sculptural industrial design project in foundation, show the different steps, different phases that you went through, because this shows them how you think and what you were doing in that process. Again, it could be a mood board. It could also be how you took them ideas to sketch. It could be doing your research and experimentations and how that related to your designs. Again, this is an architectural project where this was the front cover. Then there's a lot of these different graphic and explorational drawings to show the different phases of the actually architectural design and process. So again, not just one outcome, a variety of outcomes on one page makes it look so much richer, more exciting. Like I said, a variety of mediums you could use in your portfolio. Again, this is a student using a colored pencil, watercolor, some acrylics. You could also do single outcomes too. So again, it doesn't have to be also a project, it could just be one final outcome. This is gouache. This is lime pen. But also you could do multiple outcomes on the same theme. So again, this is all about dreaming and portraits of dreaming. So again, using the same subjects, but capturing in many different ways. And this is all about the self and thoughts about the self. So again, similar sort of portraiture subject, but captured in many different ways. Again, first one being pen, colored pencil, then charcoal, but all having their own different energies, their own different outcomes. Again, like I say, portraiture, different types of portraiture in this one as well. It's also sometimes good to show research to final design ideas, because then they show the whole process. This was a project that a student did as a sort of visual communication project. And we decided to come up with an impact. So what event in your life was very impactful? And the student said, when I took my first flight. So we created sort of a story and narrative around two versions: what you want your first flight to look like, what the first flight might have actually been like. And then the student created this sort of fold out graphic design, visual communication piece to show an imagination of what the flight could have been like, should have been like, and actually the reality of what it was like. So it's a very creative piece. Of course, when you're thinking about your portfolio, you might have to think about layout and composition. There's text go on there. How do you put your images together? Because it might not just be one per page. So again, the layout is the second point that you might have to think about. Again, this is an illustration project a student did. So again, you can see how the pages and the course or project description is included. Again, different layer here with these architectural models at the bottom, with the more technical design at the top. This was actually a story, a comic book story that actually then evolved into a sculpture. So this is a storytelling part of the beginning as a comic book, and then this evolves into sculpture. This is a typography project. As you can see here, students using sort of typography lettering to create this interesting project. Another typography project. This is an app design project. But you can see the layout of all these are very different. Again, depends on the students, depends on the school, depends on the project. And of course, final outcomes are really important. And of course, if they're physical in your major, then it's really important you show that. And you show some sort of final physical outcome, whether it's graphics, whether it's animation, video, whether it's architectural model, whether it's a sculpture, whether it's a fashion garment. So it's good that you can actually have some physical outcomes and show them in the physical world. So again, some garments, some graphic design books, some videos of still lifes and really interesting sculpture outcomes. And like I said before, you don't always have to do a long project. You don't have to do, one huge. They could be short projects, mini installations, mini sculptures, just to show your creativity and your ideas. This is a really great mini short project that we did. It was all about childhood memories. And this was actually a Parsons challenge where the student sort of collected a number of images from his memory, sort of, cut them up, sort of recollaged them together. But then what was interesting, we decided then to, because of this memories of childhood was sort of distant and faded, how do we create that within our artwork? So we then decided to sort of have these images within ice cubes, and then they would melt, and we'd take a video of that melting. So it was sort of a more performance piece in the end. So again, taking the idea further. This is a branding project. So a student decided they wanted to create their own brand. So they created a very short project based on branding and graphic design. But again, you might want to do full projects too. So here's a number of different full projects. This one's fashion design. So again, you might want to start with your research, what you investigate in, your design development, and then finally your final outcome. Again, this is an architectural project, community planning. So start off with your brief, start with your research, your analyzing your data, come up with some design suggestions or revisions. This is a full graphic design typography project. This was actually about future language. So coming up with a different way to develop a language that wasn't necessarily focused on the alphabet, but maybe is focused on a visual design. So each of these visual designs are a letter, and then you put the letters together to create the new letter of that design. So this one would be music, for example. So it would be taking the different letters, so the M, adding that to the U, and so on. This is a product design sort of a full project. You can see here again the research and design development, some experimentation, and some 3D outcomes. So again, really interesting project to show the whole process, and they love to see that. Illustration book. This is a full project. So this is the front cover, and then it goes into sort of each of the pages and the story and the narrative about this different illustration book. And the student actually in the end also created some artwork to put together. So final tips then for creating your best art portfolio, whether that's for an art and design university school, non-Ivy League school. So like I said, throughout the presentation, make sure you read the criteria closely. So every school has its own set of requirements for the portfolio. So definitely take a closer look at each school you're applying for, because all them different elements is going to what it makes it very important for you. How many pieces, what format, when it's due, so you can really map out the best portfolio for their requirements. Again, so many students have tried to put one portfolio for everything, and that just doesn't work. Organization, really important that you're organizing your pieces, organizing your portfolio, you're reflecting on that body of work, and there's a certain order, because once they see it in a certain way, they're going to read and read your narrative of your portfolio and your skills in a certain way. Definitely when it comes to, art schools want some basic information, about your portfolio, like, title and a date and description. So make sure you don't forget that. Make sure your title, a description, the medium that you use is, in that piece of artwork is included. Be concise, don't write too much, but make sure it's also quite, creative, interesting, engaging, and relates to the piece of work. Make sure to tell stories. Your portfolio is a storytelling piece itself of who you are, what you're interested in, why you want to apply to art school, non-art school, why you want to have an art supplement and your talents in art. So again, this is a story for your portfolio. But again, make sure you're including the idea within your portfolio. So it's not just about, oh, this is one piece, two piece, this is a sculpture, this is a story of all of your work together that sets you apart. And like I said, make sure you're planning, make sure you give yourself enough time. Again, don't get hung up on quantity. It's all about quality. It's all about your best work, and it's all about your process. So again, make sure you're hitting the minimum requirements the schools are looking for. But again, not always more pieces help. They can actually make the quality go down. So again, less can be actually more in your portfolio. And again, don't get advice from mentors, people who have done this before, people that are at these schools. You can go to National Portfolio Day. You could do assessments with us. So again, make sure you're getting as much advice, as much reflection as possible. And again, use that evaluation to decide how you want to develop your portfolio. Again, there's not one portfolio. There's not one outcome. I've been successful in many students. If every student I've had actually has been successful to their art design schools and non-art schools, got lots of scholarships. So again, there's a tried and tested method of advice and suggestions and crafting that, but to make sure you get that as much as you can. Again, make sure you showcase your creative abilities as well as your technical abilities. So again, make sure you're showing that you have some technical skills, and that's what you want to apply to these art and non-art schools. Show that you get for foundational level, and that can really help you with your portfolio application. And again, one of the last things is, again, there isn't one type of portfolio or one type of outcome. So if you're doing portraiture or still life, for example, everyone does a still life of fruit and flowers. That shows you technically you're good, but it's unlikely going to say an interesting story, or it's not different. So what type of portrait of still life could you create? Could it be out of your bedroom, which is very more personal to you as a still life? Could it be a still life of your family members, or your objects that are really personal to you? So again, try and think about when you're doing certain requirements that's not cliche and it's still creative. Well, thank you for listening, and I hope that was informative and that gave you some suggestions, some ideas, some reflections, some information. Definitely follow up with me, myself, on WeChat. You can add me to WeChat at Prof. Jason Paul. You can also, reach out to IvyCompass and Alison as well if you need any more guidance and support. I'd definitely be open to doing an assessment and seeing your case and seeing how best we can help you, whether you're applying for an art school, non-art school, if you're about to develop your portfolio, if you've already developed your portfolio, if you're applying this year, next year, we can definitely help you and guide you in the best way we can.